Interdimensional Travel and the Others. A Salvia Divinorum trip report at ATX Extract, posted by Antipop to Eru.org, April 22nd, 2013. Salvia Divinorum is a mysterious plant with mystical properties, far beyond our current scientific explanations. Little is known about its history. Salvia seemingly magically appeared in the Oaxaca Mountains in Mexico only 200 years ago. Native Americans from this area used it for shamanic purposes, but have no native name for this plant due to its relatively new introduction to our planet. In Spanish, salvia is called Los Ojos de la Pastora, or the Eyes of the Shepherdess. But even so-called salvia experts fail to explain salvia's arrival or its intentions. I was told about salvia by a co-worker, who seemed pretty laid back about his experiences with the sacred sage, telling me its effects was nothing more than some minor visionary impairments and uncontrolled hilarity. He'd not taken psychedelics other than a small amount of mushrooms only once. He seemed relatively inexperienced in substance-related activities for the most part, most likely because he had just turned 21. When I would smoke him out with some of my homegrown dank, he would be very stoned after only a hit or two, always leaving me to finish a big bowl meant for two of my own. No complaints here though. I figured our tolerance levels were completely different, I being a more experienced user of psychedelics ranging from acid, mushrooms, mescaline and MDMA. Coming to this conclusion, I decided to buy the most potent salvia I could find. My friend was only smoking 10x extract, so I settled on an 80x extract called Purple Sticky Salvia from a local head shop. It was rather expensive for a gram, somewhere around $70 to $80, but I figured you get what you pay for, and purchased the Mystery Mint, hoping for a decent trip, yet highly skeptical that anything that was still legal would have much of any benefit other than addiction. I drove home in excitement, anxious to try something new, perplexed as to why I had not known about salvia before. Let it be known that the only research I did on salvia was, well, zero. All I really knew about it was what I was told by my friend, a stupid move as any psychonaut can admit, and I will later brutally realise my own errors because of this. It was a warm Tuesday night in California, and I was excited to have a psychedelic experience on a weeknight. My girlfriend and I cuddled up in our bedroom on our cosy bed and smoked a couple of after-dinner bowls while watching some TV. I told her about the salvia, and she said she was game if I was, as long as I tried it first. I grabbed my trusty glass ganja pipe and prepared a large BB-sized ball of salvia by pressing the small purple leaves between my thumb and pointer fingers. My co-worker friend told me I need to take as large of a hit as I could, and to hold it in for as long as humanly possible. This should be no problem, I thought, due to my massive lung capacity allowing me to win many unsanctioned bong-ripping competitions between my friends and me. I blew all the stale air out of my lungs, preparing for a rip of epic proportions. I lit the salvia with my torch, took a gigantic hit, and held it in. While still holding in the previous hit, I inhaled hit number 2 with my remaining lung capacity, and held in both hits together for about 30 seconds. I could feel its effects growing rapidly even before I exhaled. I blew out an enormous cloud of thick purple smoke as quickly as I could in hope to stalemate the increasing rush of salvia's grip. As I exhaled, the room began to fade into a tiny, bright, singular pinpoint of light, like a vortex in the centre of my vision where the TV I was watching had previously been. I then began to hear a voice in my head, unmistakably a foreign voice and not my inner consciousness, of what sounded like a demon. While hearing the voice, a faint image of a horned creature with fangs came into my view. "You wanted this. Now you've got it," it taunted me. Before I smoked salvia, I admittedly gave little respect to the ability of this legal plant to give me the desired psychedelic experience I was hoping for. Boy, was I wrong. The effects came on so strong and so fast that for a moment I knew real terror, instantly realising I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
If you take a psychedelic and you're not afraid you did too much, you didn't do enough.
Terence McKenna once said this. Well, Terence, I definitely took enough this time. As Salvia's embrace reached full effect, I was teleported out of my room into a new universe. I was in a scene that seemed out of a rap video. I was in the centre of what was a line shaped like a half circle that opened up to the scene in front of me. The semicircle was to be made of me and other people, but they had not yet been created. This I'll explain shortly. Our semicircle was facing the scene like the audience in a Greek theatre facing the stage. This semicircle design is important because it was the consistent vantage point for what I was witnessing as I travelled between each, for lack of a better word, dimension. I was looking at a group of rappers around a shimmering green pimped out Cadillac with gold rims and trim. The car was bouncing up and down on hydraulics to the beat of blaring rap music. It was not a song I had ever heard before in our usual plane of existence, but it did seem familiar because I knew where the lyrics were heading. As the rapper rhymed, to my right would pop up items of the words the rapper was rapping about. Inanimate objects like money or gold chains were being wrapped into existence next to me, starting from the far right of the imaginary semicircle, getting step by step closer to where my position was on the back centre of this ringed formation. I sensed where the rapper's rhymes were leading to, and as I realised the timing of the song and what words came next, I understood that I was the next thing to be created. But I wasn't going to be created as me, as who I am now in this reality. The rapper's singular lyric that had been reserved for my creation was Pepsi, and I slowly came up from what was the ground as a Pepsi can. As the song blared on, more objects continued to be created to my left, continuing down the line, creating new objects as the rapper rhymed. The weirdest thing about all this was that I felt so much like me, like my human form, totally sober, not any memory of smoking the Salvia, but now in an entirely new plane of existence or parallel universe. As I looked down at my newly formed aluminum body painted in bright blue and red, I resisted, proclaiming, "No, I'm me, not this. My entire existence can't be simply created by some rap song. What the fuck? These fucking rappers in this universe need to be careful what they make songs about if they're creating our world with only the words." Debating this cosmic question within myself seemed to break me free of my mould as a Pepsi can, and soon I was astral projecting off to the next world. Let's check in with my girlfriend for a moment or two, who was sitting next to me as I took these massive hits. This is what she told me upon my return. As I exhaled, I immediately shot up from my bed and ran full speed into the wall next to my door. She says she has no idea how I built up so much speed in such a small space, but she said I hit the wall so hard that she was surprised I didn't knock the wind out of myself or dislocate my shoulder. I then stumbled into the guest bedroom like a chicken with its head cut off. Feeling my way to the window, I fumbled in confusion with the blinds. During this, I'm shrieking in a terrifying garbled voice, totally unlike my own, screaming at the top of my lungs, "What the fuck is happening? Nah, what the fuck is going on now?" She had no idea what to expect or how long this was to last since we had done no research at all. I turned and stumbled towards her and she smiled reassuringly, and I reached out for her. I walked up towards her and gave her a hug, more like held on to her for dear life. It was during this time of my trip that I was coming from a place I will describe later, and I was falling through a space. I saw my girlfriend's eyes, but they were totally large, and the pupils were completely black like the eyes of the popular grey aliens. While tumbling down through space, I saw her eyes. I reached out for her and hugged her as tightly as I could. As I did this, I stopped falling and became aware in my third and final destination, before finally coming back to this reality that we all know and cherish. Standing in our guest room together, I was holding onto her for dear life. Unusually tight, she said, and I wasn't letting go at all. She began to fear I would never let go, and considered calling one of my friends to come over and help her. I then fall to my knees and shout a bit more before crawling my way back up to my feet by way of the wall in our hallway. It seems I was acting out my dreams, but without the parlays of the neurotransmitters released during REM sleep to prevent occurrences like this one. This was the point when I began to come back to reality. Back inside my head, I was now leaving the bizarre rap world and hurtling towards my next adventure. I came to in a world of frog-like creatures in a mysterious forest with massive trees and really brown dirt. In every scene I came into, it seemed the situation that was occurring was already happening, and I had just now popped into the scene gaining consciousness, or awakened for the first time in the middle of it all, but as me, D the human, not whatever being I was becoming in each unique dimension. My view of this new world I was entering was the same as before, me at a point in the middle of the backside of a semicircle, my peripheral vision not extending outward in a line but rounded off like the semicircle extended from either side of my temple. I can compare it to a fisheye camera view of the world before me. There's some trippy video game type of music playing as well. I look down at myself, and I see that I've turned into some type of green, frog-like amphibian. My webbed hands and feet are tied to 4 separate trees to my right and my left, forcing me to sprawl out completely as I lay on the cool dirt of the forest. A group of creatures who look like me but larger are about 15 feet in front of me, hitting some sort of sharp ping-pong ball-like objects in my direction, and in the direction of a couple creatures the same as me to my right and left, arranged like the previous rap world I was in. They were playing some sort of game, and these dangerous ping-pong balls were slicing us open bit by bit. The balls were cutting the corners of my mouth open like how the Joker looks in Batman, slicing my mouth from corner to corner towards my ears, widening it to an unnatural width. While this is happening, I'm screaming as I'm slowly gaining consciousness in this amphibian body who had previously felt no pain. I'm fully aware of what is going on around me, but with the consciousness of me, D, a human, still having no memory of taking any substance, or any memory of being this amphibian, feeling completely like my human self, probably the most sober and aware I've ever been. It was almost more real than reality, if that can even make any sense. As I became aware of myself in this new plane of existence, the other creatures stopped what they were doing and studied me. Seeming astonished, they came over to me highly perplexed as to how I was having feelings and becoming aware. One of them picked me up into its arms and they all gathered around me curiously. I could see that I was being held by what was the queen of these creatures, signified by the feminine crown on the top of her slimy amphibian head. The king was one of the observers in the group. His brilliant gold crown glistened with large red rubies. Dazed and very confused, I looked down perplexed at my frog-like body. The crowd gasped in excitement. "He sees himself," said the queen. "He sees how beautiful he is. This is amazing. The first of his kind." This was too much for me to bear. I had all my wits about me. I was thinking so clearly. What the hell was happening? Are there many versions of me throughout this universe? And am I getting a glimpse of what is already going on in the many parallel planes of my existence throughout our universe? Who knows? All I knew was that my view of the world was shattering before my eyes, and I didn't know if I was prepared yet for the truth. Something flashed, and I was falling once again through space like the stardust I once was in my galactic infancy. As I hurled through space, I began passing by faces of all the people I have known. They were going by so fast like the spinning wheels on a slot machine. One of the faces was my girlfriend's, but all I could see was her eyes, the large black alien eyes as described previously. I reached into the spinning wheel of humanity, clutching my girlfriend with all my might, which began to slow the fall. I slowly floated down into the next bizarre scene in the arms of my loving girlfriend. We fell precisely into place on the semicircle arrangement I had previously described, with her position directly next to me on my right. The pattern of heads continued down the semicircle in both directions once again, very similar to the rap scene. We were all submerged in the earth, not buried, but a part of it, with only from our necks up showing. We were in the front yard facing what was my childhood home. In front of the house is an arrangement of seating similar to a place where Congress would meet. The seats were filled with the most prominent people of our government and governments around the world, as well as scientists, my mum, and my dad sitting right next to George W. Bush. They were all staring intently at the semicircle scene in front of them. This is the first time my memory is kind of blurry about how things next transpired. Probably because I was so overwhelmed with my previous 2 journeys. Whatever the reason, I don't quite remember how they were doing it, but the group of scientists in front of us were evoking the creation of people up from the earth just like the rap scene. It started to my far right of the semicircle. The first head rose from the earth into something that I don't quite remember. This sequence of events continued from right to left, going from person to person, raising them from the dirt to become the new form. It was getting closer and closer to being my turn. The whole time this was happening, I was screaming at the scene, "What the fuck is happening? Nah, what the fuck is going on?" My girlfriend, who was submerged in the earth next to me, was looking over at me trying to calm me down. She was telling me, "Stay calm and don't panic. It's alright, just let go and go with it." It was her turn now, and she was taking it so calmly I was thinking to myself, what the fuck is this? It can't be real. I decided not to give in to whatever was going on around me, and as I let out a war cry of a scream, I began to rip myself up out of the earth while my parents and girlfriend yelled at me to stop. "No, Dee, it's all gonna be okay, just relax," they warned. Fuck relaxing, I thought. What the hell is going on? I pulled myself out of the ground like breaking through some kind of fabric. Gooey remains peeled off me as I rose to my feet, taking my human form. This bizarre birthing process was now complete, and I was now fully alert and walking in the onlookers dimension. I flailed my arms wildly in front of me, heading towards my house and the crowd of those who had been watching and studying us. As I reached my house, it was like the set of a Hollywood movie. I began knocking over props of what had been my house, my room. Everything was toppling over as I ran into things. Pushing the props were like hurdles in track and field, all over the place as I advanced into the fake set that I had once believed to be my home. I then stumbled over one of the props and fell onto the ground in my childhood hallway. My girlfriend had popped out of the earth too, and was now chasing me to try and console me. I soon was told that she was on their side, whoever they were, and she was an alien sent to watch over me and keep me in control. I couldn't believe it. I was crushed, betrayed. I crawled on my knees down the hallway, trying to escape from her in this nightmare. I began running my hands along the walls, knocking pictures off in the process, just trying to get a grip on something to help me back up to my feet. As I was clawing the walls of my childhood home, I slowly began to fade back into this world, the effects of the salvia beginning to diminish. I was now back in the hallway of my apartment in the real world, where this whole journey began. I was on my knees, scrambling away from the guest room towards my bedroom. I looked behind me and saw my girlfriend coming from out of the guest room. A sudden panic overwhelmed me. There she is, coming to get me. I thought this in my half-confused delusional state, and still had the faint feeling from my salvia-induced hallucinations that my girlfriend was a part of a giant conspiracy that I had just uncovered. She looked slightly worried, but not very threatening. As I slowly came to realizing that I'd just taken salvia and gone on a wild psychedelic trip, and was just now returning to touch my feet back on the ground again, I stood up, walked the rest of the way to my bedroom, and plopped onto my bed. I was starting to feel like myself again, but with some minor after effects. As I sat on the bed, everything seemed to be sucked to my right, the direction in which I ran full speed into the wall. My girlfriend's hair seemed to be flowing to the right, along with everything else in the room. I had the feeling I was leaning completely sideways, and I kept asking if I was sitting up straight, which I was. I felt very excited and euphoric. like a beautiful, mellow mushroom trip, and seemed grateful for the experience even though it scared the living shit out of me. Wow. That was amazing, I kept saying. What an adventure. I feel blessed to have experienced that, you know. But there's no mistaking that Salvia had taught me a brutal lesson. It had answered my challenge tenfold. I still remember it all very clearly today, like it had actually happened in real life. The events are so vivid and realistic, I believe something totally beyond our understanding may have taken place. I even have faint scars on both sides of my face from the corners of my mouth extending about an inch towards my ears. Both my girlfriend and I had never seen the scars until that very night. I now have a healthy fear and newfound respect for Salvia divinorum. Whether Salvia is the eyes of the shepherdess allowing us to see what is beyond our current boundaries, or an intergalactic propulsion source meant to unlock the chemistry within our brain allowing us to travel to vast galaxies only explored by highly advanced extraterrestrial life, there will be a purpose for it. Though the relationship between man and Salvia may still be in its inception, we are evolving to a point where we can find new, life-changing information as we gain a greater understanding of the messages delivered to us through the offspring of Mother Nature.